What would you do if your parents handed you a $138,000 invoice for raising you? Mine did. After a lifetime of quiet sacrifices, I discovered they'd not only put a price on my childhood, but also erased me from my grandfather's will. This isn't just a family drama, it's a reckoning. If you love stories with shocking twists and emotional depth, hit that subscribe button and don't miss what comes next. I hadn't even set my coat down when my mother handed me the envelope. It was a quiet Thanksgiving evening in the suburbs of Ohio. The kind where the fireplace crackles, the mashed potatoes are already steaming on the table, and everyone pretends for a few hours that the past year hadn't happened. I came through the door holding a bottle of wine, Cabernet, Mom's favorite, and my best attempt at neutral energy. But Linda, my mother, barely looked at the wine. Her lips curled into something resembling a smile, but there was no warmth behind it. Instead, she handed me a thick cream-colored envelope and said, "We've been meaning to talk to you about something." I blinked, took it, and looked around. The house smelled like cinnamon and gravy. My younger brother Kyle was already seated at the dinner table with his wife and their 2 kids. My father, Charles, stood near the fireplace nursing a glass of scotch. The envelope was heavy in my hand. "You'll want to read it now," she added, as if I'd just received some heartfelt letter from a distant cousin. I opened it slowly. There were multiple pages, 13 to be exact, each one numbered, typed in Times New Roman, double-spaced. It wasn't a letter. It was a bill. Itemized. Labeled. With dollar amounts. Hospital delivery, $3,200. Formula and diapers, 1980 to 1983, $4,700. Food, 1984 to 1998, $28,400. School supplies, $9,500. Clothing and shoes, $11,000. Parental emotional support, $15,000. Lawn maintenance during teen years, $1,500. Unexpected teenage attitude, 1994 to 1998. Emotional surcharge, $6,000. Total, $138,450.32. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud, thinking this had to be some twisted family joke. But when I looked up, my dad gave me a short nod like he was confirming a payment plan, and my mom was already turning back toward the kitchen, unfazed. "You can pay it back over time," she said, adjusting her apron. "We know you're not struggling." I looked at Kyle. He kept his eyes down, cutting turkey for one of his boys like nothing was happening. He knew. He must have known. "I don't get it," I said. "Is this supposed to be a joke?" Charles stepped in, voice calm. "Raising a child is expensive, Daniel. We sacrificed a lot. It's only fair you acknowledge that now that you're doing well." I stared at them. These were the people who raised me, who tucked me in at night when I had nightmares, who used to clap when I brought home art projects from school. And now they were handing me a bill for it? "It's about respect," Mom added. "Kyle appreciates us. He's shown that in ways that matter. Well, it's time. Respect." That word stung more than the total on the bill. Because I'd been respectful. I'd kept my distance when they iced me out. I still called on holidays. I brought wine. I helped when they hinted. I thought we had some unspoken peace, even if it was strained. Apparently I was wrong. I placed the envelope down on the table, quietly, carefully. My hand didn't shake. My jaw didn't clench. I looked around that table. My brother, his wife, my parents, and something in me split clean in half. They thought this was the end of the conversation. They had no idea it was only the beginning. Later that night, long after the dishes were cleared and the laughter from the kids had faded into the upstairs bedrooms, I sat in my childhood room staring at that invoice again. Felt like it weighed 10 pounds. My name was printed on every page like I was a client who'd defaulted on a service. And the longer I stared at it, the more I realized something. This wasn't just about money. This was about rewriting history. When I was 10, my birthday landed on a Saturday. I remember because Kyle had a soccer game that morning and my parents told me we'd celebrate after. The game ran long, Kyle's team lost, and he cried in the car the whole way home. We never had the party. No cake, no candles, no presents. That night, Mom handed me a $10 bill and said, "Pick something out at the store next time we go. You know we love you, right?" I kept that bill in my wallet for 3 decades. Not because of its value, but because it was the only gift I got that day. It turned brown and soft at the corners and I never spent it. It was the first time I realized that love in my family wasn't free. It had terms, conditions, and some of us, well, we didn't meet them. Kyle always did. He was the easy one. The golden boy. The one who played sports, joined clubs, brought home girls they liked. I was quieter. A book kid. Awkward. I fixed the broken fence at age 13 without being asked. I learned how to reset the fuse box when I was 15. I stayed in on weekends and worked at the hardware store after school, while Kyle got rides to parties. And somehow it was never enough. When he brought home a B, they praised his effort. When I got an A-, they asked, what happened? He got extra help. I got told to figure it out. I used to tell myself I was imagining things. That they loved us both. That maybe I was just being sensitive. But that lie cracked the day Karen got sick. It started slow. Headaches. Fatigue. A heaviness in her voice. By the time the diagnosis came, stage 3 ovarian cancer, it was already bad. We tried everything. Clinical trials, holistic diets, late-night prayer circles from her church friends. I sat beside her through every appointment, every chemo session. I'd hold her hair back when she threw up. I learned how to inject meds into her thigh at home. I stopped sleeping. Stopped working full-time. I just became hers. Her anchor. Her husband. I called my parents during one of her worst days. Her fever had spiked and I knew she didn't have long. I asked them, begged them to come see her. Just to visit, I said. Just say goodbye. But they refused. Said it was too painful. Said they didn't want to remember her that way. I'll never forget what Mom told me. We weren't close with her, Daniel. You know that. Karen died at 2:11 a.m. on a Thursday morning. The night nurse told me she'd waited until I stepped out for a coffee, like she didn't want me to see her go. When I got home from the hospital, there was one new voicemail on our landline. It was from Karen, recorded earlier that week when I was out picking up her meds. Her voice was soft, tired, but steady. She said, Daniel, promise me something. Don't let anyone tell you what love looks like. You know it. You gave it to me every single day. If they ever come back and act like they earned your forgiveness, remember what they left behind. Family isn't blood. It's the people who lift you when you're breaking. That message lived in my chest ever since. I didn't even realize I'd saved it until tonight. The more I thought about it, the more I started adding things up. Not emotionally, but practically. Because since I left home at 18, I'd sent money to my parents more times than I could count. Not big checks. Nothing flashy. But consistent. Quiet. Every winter when the heating bills got too high, I covered the difference. When their roof leaked in 2009, I paid for the repairs. $6,500. When Dad's blood pressure meds weren't covered by insurance, I wired $3,800 for the pharmacy. During COVID, I sent $5,000 to help them stay afloat. And in 2017, when Kyle's startup crashed and they needed a loan to keep the family name clean, I wrote a check for $10,000 without question. I even paid for Aunt Carol's funeral when Mom said the expenses were too much. I never once asked for repayment. I never brought it up during birthdays or holidays. I never bragged. Because to me it wasn't about money. It was about love. Family. The invisible contract we're all born into. The one where you show up quietly when it matters most. Apparently my parents had a different contract. And now they were presenting it, with back interest. I stood from the bed, opened my briefcase and pulled out the folder I had brought. I hadn't meant to use it. But part of me had been prepared. The past few months had been strange. Offhand comments, weird distance, Dad asking about my finances in casual ways. I knew something was brewing. Inside the folder was a printed document. My own invoice. I hadn't written it out of spite. I had written it as a reminder, to myself, of everything I had given when no one asked and no one thanked me. $73,000. That was the subtotal. And that didn't include the nights I spent alone after Karen died, the birthdays I spent waiting for calls that never came, or the time I sat through Kyle's second wedding while Mom asked me if I was seeing anyone yet. I closed the folder, held it in both hands and stared at it like it might catch fire. I didn't need revenge. I didn't want drama. What I wanted, what I always wanted, was acknowledgement. But that wasn't coming. Not from them. And maybe that was okay. Because this time I had my own record. The next morning breakfast was quiet. Too quiet. Kyle and his wife had taken the kids out to the park. My parents moved around the kitchen in their typical dance. Him reading the news on his tablet, her brewing coffee and humming a song that didn't belong in the tension of that house. I sat at the table, hands folded, folder beside me. I hadn't said a word about the invoice the night before. I'd nodded politely through dinner, helped clear the table, even complimented the stuffing. But inside me something had shifted. That $10 birthday, that voicemail from Karen, that hospital room no one visited, all of it had built toward this one stupid moment. And I was done pretending it didn't matter. Mom poured herself a mug and sat down across from me, smoothing her robe like she was preparing for a friendly conversation. "Did you have time to go through the bill?" she asked, sweet like syrup but sharp underneath. "We don't expect it all at once. We know things take time." I reached into the folder and pulled out the stack of papers, neatly stapled, signed. I slid it across the table to her with both hands. "I did. And I brought my response." She blinked, confused. "Response? It's an invoice," I said. "Like yours." Dad looked up from his tablet. "What do you mean?" I pushed the document toward them. "Since we're putting prices on love, I figured we might as well keep things fair." They didn't reach for it at first. Just stared. So I began to read aloud. 2009 roof repair, $6,500. 2011, medical copays for dad's prescriptions, $3,800. 2014 to 2022, monthly winter heating support, estimated at $400 a month for 9 winters, $38,400. COVID emergency fund, $5,000. Kyle's business bailout per mom's request, $10,000. Aunt Carol's funeral costs, $3,200. Plus groceries, car tune-ups and holiday support, conservative estimate, $6,000. Subtotal, $72,900. Payment never requested, never acknowledged. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's hands clenched around her coffee mug. "You're being ridiculous," she said finally. "That's not the same." "No," I replied, voice steady. "You're right. It's not. Because I never gave those things expecting anything in return." "Then why bring them up now?" Dad asked. "Because you did. You brought this up when you handed me a bill for existing. For being born. For eating and crying and growing up. So let's level the field, Charles. If my life had a cost, so did my care." There was silence. A long, awkward pause in which I could see Mom trying to find the right angle of attack. He always was the tactician. "This isn't how family works," she finally said. "Family doesn't keep receipts." I leaned forward, calm. "You're right again. But you do. You always thought you were better than us," she snapped. "Always acted like you were above this family." I shook my head. "No. I just stopped waiting for love to look like what I saw in movies. I accepted what you had to give for what it was. But don't mistake my silence for agreement. Don't mistake my patience for weakness." Dad finally picked up the paper. "Read it. Line by line." His eyes darted. His lips moved slightly with the math. And then he placed it back down like it was radioactive. "This is petty," he said. "You're not the only one who gave things up." "No," I said. "But I'm the only one being charged for them." I stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen counter. Picked up a small black voice recorder from my bag. I hit play. Karen's voice, frail but unwavering, filled the room. "Daniel, promise me something. If they ever come back and act like they've earned your forgiveness, remember what they left behind." My mother paled. My father went still. "She asked you to play that?" Mom whispered. "No," I said. "She asked me to remember. I'm the one who chose to share it." I looked at both of them, the people who once held me as a baby who now sat frozen, staring at a mirror they didn't expect. "I thought maybe you were grieving her too. Maybe that's why you stayed away. But now I see it clearly. It was never grief. It was indifference wrapped in guilt, tied with a bow of entitlement." "We did our best," Dad said, voice low. "Then maybe your best wasn't good enough," I said. "And maybe that's not on me." I reached into my pocket and took out the envelope they'd given me the night before. I tore it once, twice, until the pieces fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. "You can keep the debt," I said. "But I'm settling mine today. We're even." I left the house that morning without saying another word. Kyle was outside tossing a football to his son, pretending not to have heard any of it. I didn't stop to talk to him. I drove straight to the office of a man I hadn't seen in over a decade. Mr. Harrison, the estate attorney who'd handled my grandfather's affairs. I had no appointment. Just a question I couldn't get out of my head. My grandfather, Henry Moore, passed away in 2018. A quiet man. Veteran. Churchgoer. Taught me how to tie fishing knots and patch drywall. When I was 12, he told me, "Daniel, this land will be yours and Kyle's one day. Split it down the middle. A clean line. Don't let it divide you." I never forgot that. I'd assumed, foolishly it turns out, that the property had been held until my parents were ready to pass it down. 5 acres of flat Ohio soil. Nothing glamorous. But to me it was legacy. Memory. Promise. At the office, Mr. Harrison recognized me instantly. We sat down in his wood-paneled conference room and I asked him the question flat out. "Do you have the file from my grandfather's estate? I'd like to see the final disposition." He blinked. "I thought your parents would have told you." "Told me what?" He pulled out a manila folder, thick with copies. He laid them out page by page. There was, in black and white. In 2019, just a year after Henry's passing, the land had been transferred. All 5 acres. To Kyle. Sole owner. No mention of me. The signature line said Charles Moore. And below it, Linda Moore. Witnesses. No contest. No restriction. I felt a weight drop into my chest like a brick. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew. Mr. Harrison hesitated. "They told me you were not interested in staying in the family business. That you had moved on. That Kyle had roots here and you were disconnected." Disconnected. That word felt like poison. They'd used my independence as proof of detachment. My ability to stand alone became the justification for cutting me out entirely. I left his office in a fog. Drove back to my hotel room in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there on the edge of the bed with the papers in my lap and one phrase echoing again and again in my skull. They erased me. Not with malice. Not with rage. But with the quiet certainty of people who never saw me as equal in the first place. I texted Kyle that night. No response. So I called him. Straight to voicemail. The next morning he knocked on my door at 7:13 a.m., coffee in one hand, a fake smile on his lips. I let him in. "I was going to tell you," he said before I could speak. I didn't answer. "It was Mom and Dad's idea," he continued. "They said you had your own life. You didn't need it. I mean, you're successful, right? You've got your business. I'm just here. And that justifies stealing my inheritance?" "No one stole anything," he said, eyes flickering. "You were never on the deed. It was theirs to give." I looked at him. My brother. The boy I used to walk to the bus stop. The man I bailed out with $10,000. The son they chose over and over again. "You let them erase me," I said quietly. "You stood by and watched it happen. And you didn't say a word." Kyle's jaw twitched. "I didn't ask for this, Daniel." "No. He just accepted it. Like you always do." He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just stood there like a man who couldn't see the fire he helped start. I opened the hotel room door and pointed. "Get out." He looked like he wanted to argue. Maybe explain. Maybe beg. But he didn't. He walked out. And I closed the door behind him, slower than necessary, letting the silence swallow the space between us. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the chair by the hotel window, watching the glow of a street lamp dance on the glass. I hadn't cried yet. Not over the land, not over the bill, not over Kyle. But everything in me felt hollow, like my ribs had been scooped out and filled with lead. It wasn't rage. It wasn't shock. It was something heavier. Something older. Loss. Not of money. Not of property. Of story. Of legacy. Of the quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, I'd misunderstood my parents all these years. That deep down they loved me the same. That their silence was just discomfort. Their distance was just age. But now I knew. I wasn't misunderstood. I was unwanted. Unneeded. Forgotten. I reached for my phone. Scrolled through the saved voicemails. Most were spam. One from a contractor. Another from a doctor's office. And then near the bottom, still marked new, even though I'd played it at least 100 times. Karen. It was dated 6 days before she died. I hit play. Her voice came through soft, raspy but steady, like it had lived in my bones all along. Hey babe, if you're hearing this, I guess I missed you again. Probably off picking up another prescription or saving the world one HVAC at a time. I closed my eyes. Her humor. Even at the end, she still found ways to smile for me. I just wanted to say, thank you. For everything. For the tea you brought me at 3 a.m., for pretending my hospital socks were stylish, for reading that same stupid novel out loud even though I always fell asleep by page 5. I felt my throat tighten. But mostly, for choosing me. Every day. Even when it was hard. Especially then. You showed me what love looks like. And it's not grand. It's not diamonds or vacations. It's carrying someone when they can't carry themselves. And Daniel, you did that. For me. Even when you were falling apart too. Pause. A breath. I don't know what happens next. Maybe you'll forget this message. Maybe you'll play it on some hard night when you need someone in your corner. But if they ever come back, your family, if they come looking for you with guilt in their pockets and pride in their mouths, I want you to remember something. Her voice dropped into something lower, more fragile. They left you long before you left them. They don't get to act like you owe them anything. Because you don't. You never did. You were always enough. You are enough. My hand was shaking. I hadn't realized it, but tears had slipped past my eyes and onto my collar. Her voice continued. A whisper against the storm I'd been carrying. Daniel, promise me something. Don't let them take your softness. That part of you that still believes in good. That's the part one fell in love with. That's the part this world needs. The message ended there. No goodbye. No closure. Just the weight of everything she knew I would need to hear when I forgot how to breathe. I sat there for a long time. Just breathing. Karen had always known me better than anyone. Better than I knew myself. She knew I'd try to fix things with my parents. She knew I'd wait for some redemption that would never come. And she knew how easily I could be guilt back into silence. But she left me armor. In the form of truth. And maybe, just maybe, that was the final gift she ever gave me. Not forgiveness. Not peace. Permission. To walk away. I updated my will the next morning. It wasn't dramatic. No storm clouds. No angry pen strokes. Just quiet clicks on a keyboard and a 30-minute call with my lawyer, Denise. A woman who'd helped me through the legal mess after Karen died and never once asked questions she didn't need answers to. I'd like to make a full revision, I said, eyes fixed on the desk in front of me. Of course. Who are we removing? She asked. My parents. And my brother. Silence on the other end. Denise was professional, but she'd met my family once. That was enough. And the new beneficiary? I took a breath. Unity House. The nonprofit for foster youth aging out of the system. I want everything to go to them. My home, my business, my savings. Everything. She didn't ask why. She just said, I'll draw it up this afternoon. I stared at the phone after she hung up. There was no weight lifted. No applause. No righteous rush of vengeance. Just stillness. Like I'd finally dropped a box I'd been carrying for too many years without realizing how heavy it was. I didn't need to announce it to my family. There would be no warning letter. No confrontation. Just silence, wrapped in legal paper, waiting like a final exhale. A week later, I sent my parents one last message. Not out of cruelty, but closure. Read. I received your invoice. I responded in kind. You taught me that love is conditional, and now I've simply accepted the conditions. You no longer owe me and I no longer owe you. We are square. I didn't sign it with love. I didn't sign it at all. That was the last time I contacted them. Since then, I found a strange kind of peace. I don't feel victorious. I feel untethered, lighter. I walk slower. I sleep longer. I stopped waiting for birthday calls that never came, stopped checking the family group chat where no one asked how I was. I stopped pretending. And in that stillness, I've started to rediscover the parts of me that never needed their permission. The part that laughed without guilt. The part that didn't flinch when someone raised their voice. The part Karen loved most. They took a lot from me over the years. But they didn't get the last word. 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. The envelope was pale blue, the kind you'd find in a grocery store card aisle. I knew the handwriting. I hadn't seen it in years. It was Emily, Kyle's wife. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper folded once. No greeting. No small talk. Just this. I didn't agree with what they did. I still don't. I used to think you were cold, Daniel. But now I understand. You weren't cold. You were surviving. She didn't say anything else. Didn't ask to meet. Didn't beg for a reunion. Just that small sentence, tucked into a quiet envelope, like a breath after shouting. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I didn't need to. She had said what I never thought anyone in that family would admit. That I wasn't crazy. I wasn't bitter. I was right to walk away. My phone doesn't ring much these days. And I'm okay with that. The quiet doesn't bother me like it used to. I filled my time with other things. I joined a volunteer crew that fixes heating units for seniors in low-income housing. I started cooking again. Real meals. From scratch. Karen would have teased me for burning the rice the first few tries. There are nights I still listen to her voicemail. Not because I'm sad, but because her voice reminds me of who I was when someone truly saw me. She was my compass. And even now, in this strange new chapter, she still points me home. So that's the update. No fireworks. No apologies. No dramatic reconciliation. Just peace. And for the first time in my life, that's enough.